Only 17 minutes behind. Only 24 minutes behind.
We'll do the roll call.
I call the roll. Vice Chair Wilson.
Here.
Secretary Perry Amatiga. Here. Treasurer Vargas.
Here.
Member Caros.
Present.
Member Baca. There's 5 of 5 reporting, quorum is established.
All right. Thank you. Can we review the agenda and have approval for the agenda for this evening?
I suggest moving item 7 to follow item 5 and move down presentations.
If you'd like to.
Is that yeah, so we have a motion to move item 7 to leave item 5.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so it is. All right, we move on to item 3.0. Are there any announcements? Okay. We'll move on to the consent calendar and the approval of the board minutes from June 28, 19. Are there any additions, corrections, to the minutes?
I don't have any.
If not, may I have a motion to accept the minutes as they're documented?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
So we have 2 abstentions and 3 ayes.
Okay. Motion carried.
All right, and now we'll move on to item 5.0, and that's public comment.
We have one public comment for the open session. Don Gosney.
Good evening. I'm Don Gosney. I live in Richmond. You know, transparency is the buzzword used so often these days when talking about educational bodies, especially charter schools. AMETHOD has hosted their most recent meetings here in the far reaches of Oakland. Half of your schools, though, are in Richmond, and actually in the same complex. Yet you want parents and members of the community to brave the 70-minute bumper-to-bumper trek out here instead of coming out to where the people for these schools live, work, and attend schools. I know that more people would attend your board meetings if they didn't have to pay for childcare or a quarter tank of gas to get here and back. You had meetings scheduled here, or scheduled for Richmond just last month, then at the last minute you blew us off. Okay, you didn't reschedule for Richmond, rescheduled for back out here. AMETHOD caters to low-income families, families who can ill afford to come out here. As perhaps you can show the Richmond San Pablo community a little respect and come to them every now and again. On another issue, I attend a lot of charter school board meetings, and the boards all seem to want to rule in anonymity. Place cards with your name on there would tell us who you are and what positions. Is he a board member or is he a staff member? We don't know this, because even on your website there aren't any headshot pictures. It would help quite a bit. Be the leader on that. I tell all the other charters to do this. You can be the first. And the last little thing, you try to conduct your meetings as if it's a conversational group right here. Please speak to the room so that we can hear you. And considering that you're being recorded and posted on YouTube later tonight, we want to do more than just see your lips moving. Help us out, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other comments.
So I'd like to make a recommendation that we look at the board meeting schedule again and the locations of those. I think it was our intention to
So at our last meeting, you all approved the academic calendars for the 1920 school year. There was an error, error on those calendars. And rather than returning on Wednesday, Friday the 3rd from the holiday break, we had students returning on Tuesday the 2nd after the break. So we revised the calendar to extend the break as it was meant to be. The calendar is still compliant with the number of instructional units needed. In fact, it's excessive on instructional units. So we just wanted to amend that.
All right.
Move to approve the amended academic calendar for 2019-2020.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, then we'll move on to item 7.2, the approval of the E-rate Category 2 proposal.
Okay, good evening, board members. E-rate is a federal program that there's two portions. One is called Category 1. It provides 90% discount for internet for all of our schools. So we have to apply for that every single year and receive that every single year. It's through AT&T. You have to go through the competitive bidding process, and that helps pay for internet at every single one of our schools. Second part is called Category 2. And each of our schools has a bank of money that over a 5-year period you can use to upgrade your internal connections within a school. Those are the access points, the wiring, the switches, everything that makes sure that internet reaches the classroom and kids are able to get on the Chromebooks. So about 4 years ago, we used a big portion of it when we actually upgraded all of our schools, but we still had some money left over for RC and BGE because we knew the upstairs was coming at 1450 Marina South. So we are now ready to start the build out of that. You are going to see that construction contract over the next couple of meetings. We're still getting that together, but there's very specific deadlines that the federal government asks us to abide by when we are moving this forward. One of them being that our board approves the proposal of our Category 2 work that's going to take place upstairs. So as you see from the proposal, this is again to get every classroom wired with access points and to make sure the internet is able to get to every single classroom. The proposal that we that won the bid, because they make you go through a very stringent bidding process, was $107,000. We have about $33,800 in the bank to be able to use towards that. So out of pocket will be $73,755. Now there's safeguards around this. The federal government still has to actually apportion this. Usually it happens in the summertime. The first year we did this, they ended up not actually making the money available. So if that's the case, contract does not move forward. So you're protected that way. So we still have to wait for the money to actually become available. But tonight we are considering the proposal for this. You will see this come up again when we bring the full construction contract to you over the next couple board meetings to do the upstairs. But because of the timeline around this, we got to bring this to you now. So this is going to be part of the bigger construction project, which will go out for financing but this is just a small portion of the overall project that's going to happen that we need to have you review and hopefully approve for us to be able to move forward with the federal guidelines around their deadlines. Any questions?
Does the expected 77,000 and change, do we expect to get that prior to implementation?
Absolutely. Yeah, so this work won't go forward until the full construction work is approved by you all and moves forward. And in which case, Will and I are looking at how to finance that project. So the $73,000 and $73,755, that will be part of the financing we get for the overall project.
But my question is on the timing. So will that money come in before the project commences?
Usually it comes in, last time we did this, we got the money, I believe it was October, November, and the work was completed in January, February. So usually get
get the money from the government during the work. But we know, we know the money's coming before we start the work.
And that's what we're waiting for, is notice that we've been approved. I'm sorry.
Yes, usually in the summertime is when the feds will say, because Congress approved this money, so they will say this money is coming. We were able to fully fund Category 2, and at that point we tell the contractor, okay, we are good to go. If the feds come back and say there wasn't enough money, sorry, try again next year, then we can actually cut the contract out and say no, we're not moving forward.
Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the rate category 2 proposal?
Say it.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item 7.3, approval of the $3 million revolving line of credit with capital impact.
Yes. Good afternoon, board members. We have a proposal for an opportunity for us to elect and engage in seeking a $3 million line with capital impact. So just to give you an idea, Capital Impact was the entity that actually financed the John Henry High project that we did about 18 months ago. Currently, this is more of a precautionary vehicle, given the fact, as you will know, that what the current political climate is out there. Second of all, we're also fully aware that we're going to be looking, as Pete just pointed out, into investing into this larger project. And should we move forward, there's going to be some cost that we're going to have to put up front. Typically, though, the revolving line of credit is to service and to strengthen our short-term capital as the year kind of progresses. So we were able to engage with Capital Impact, and of course, this will allow us to do that, but also for them to be able to do their due diligence. We have been able to get a term sheet from them. So as you can tell, the current structure is it's formula-based. It means that twice a year we have to be able to provide them with financial information, and then from there they're able to dissect and say, okay, based upon this is the current receivables coming from those particular areas, we're going to be able to advance this much, right? So at the end of the day, it's in essence a very unsecured line. It's priced accordingly. So in this case, there's mitigating factors. So that's the reason why you see the increase, or not the increase, but the fees that are tied to this obligation. The other thing is that this will be a line that gets, should we be able to move forward and then grant the line, this is something that's going to be reviewed on a yearly basis. Subject to us being able to provide, financial information to the lender on I believe it's on a quarterly basis. Just to give you an idea what the financial impact will be, I kind of did a kind of like a borrowing-based calculation based on what the receivables that we have in 12/31/2018. Even though, typically when you hear a borrowing base, even though you have the availability to borrow up to $3 million, it's in essence it's really tied to what your assets or what your receivables are at that point in time. So in this case, based upon that, as of 12/31/2018, we would only be able to borrow up to $1.9 million. Of course, that will be a cost of roughly about $10,000 per month. There's also, a non-utilization fee, which is basically the differential, and that's spread out over the year. So in essence, it kind of gives you an indication what those fees will cost on a yearly basis. We ran our scenarios within the budget, and we were able to, in essence, cover the cost as we use the line. And of course, as any lender will allow, is that if you're not able to meet the particular covenants, they're not going to be able to extend the facility. So most importantly, this is a safeguard It's also given, some of the things that we pointed out earlier. It just gives us an opportunity for us to engage with capital impact. Questions? Sure.
So we're looking at $11,000 a month, basically, in borrowing costs.
Correct. Based upon this scenario, about $65,000 a year.
And twice a year, based on the calculation of 1.85 mil, we're talking about 67,000 in expense for the month.
Yes, over the year, if we so let's say so as of December, right? We provided financial information. The letter says in this case 1.9 is the maximum they could use. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to, as you will know, we're fairly conservative, right? Yeah. So that means that we're allowed to, over the next 6 months, to advance up to 1.9 million. That doesn't mean that we will do so.
So the percentage that they're going to charge for interest is based on the actual loan?
Yes. So currently what they do is, of course, it's short-term funding, so short-term rate. Just to give you an idea, 1 month LIBOR over the last 10+ years, it was up to about 2017, it was hovering under 1%. The reality is that from an economic standpoint, the 1 month LIBOR, the 5 month LIBOR has been increasing since 2007. The economy improved. Short-term interest rates tend to have been, currently it's about 2.3.
So this is a flexible rate, it's not a set rate?
It's a variable rate. It's not a fixed rate. No, yeah, lines of credit. So they'll give us the rate. Say on 12/31, they'll tell us exactly what the maximum amount that we could finance, and then they'll tell us exactly what the rate will be plus the margin. So currently the rate, last time I checked, was hovering just slightly under 7%.
And the other question I have is in terms of the cash flow projections for 1920.
Correct.
How many times do you see this coming into play?
The need to advance on the line?
Right.
Well, it varies. Well, one of the biggest factors I think we'll have to look into is exactly that project that we're talking about next year. Excuse me, next month. The construction of the TI project upstairs. And ultimately we have to go out into the marketplace and have that discussion with lenders. So let me give you a case in point. If we were to engage and a particular lender says, hey, you're looking at this project and we want you to put 10% into it, then our first line of resource will be to be able to tap into our cash position, right? Without liquidating everything that we have there. So there may be a need at that point in time, which, it will be a part of the monthly or bi-monthly presentation where you're notified, hey, we're going to be advancing, we did advance XYZ, and here's how the funds are utilized, and here's how it's looking into impacting our cash flow over the next 6 months.
Well, I understand the temporary need for this, but the truth is that this is something we've been talking for probably a couple of years now. We haven't done much, but we should be getting some sort of permanent capital to take care of these kind of situations.
Correct.
So we should be looking actively, really now, to get a sizable grant, a couple of major grants from foundations that can help us, have a much more stronger ample base,
Correct.
So that's something that I should be working with you. I don't have any problem with the 7% rate. It's pretty good actually. This is for a short-term facility. It's kind of cheap. But because our current financial situation is kind of tight, it does have an impact, right, on the financial position of the organization. But why don't we start working on creating a more permanent solution for these kind of situations.
And Hernan brings a great point, right? You never finance long-term assets with short-term. And ultimately, we're going to be looking to your guidance to be able to, one, talk about kind of like more of a long-term exit strategy with the development, and also looking at other additional sources that we could go out there and then help us facilitate as the organization continues to grow. Because and we'll be talking this later, but the trajectory for the organization over the next few years is that there's a growth pattern, right? So as the organization grows and grows, there's just certain factors that become tighter and tighter, right? So, great point. Yeah, I look forward to working with you guys and start having a discussion on
One last question. So on prepayment, we state no, that it,
Correct.
first you say no, loan can be prepaid up to once a month?
that. Yes,
So when I looked at the letter says yes.
It's a term sheet. There's no prepayment.
It says the loan may be prepaid.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah. The
It's
loan
just
may
a
be
word.
prepaid.
The
So
word-
there's no penalty.
There's a
No
penalty.
penalty.
The no is there's no penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No prepayment penalty. Yes, you could prepay the obligation at any point in time. And remember, we're providing financial information to the other party should, we're granted the obligation, right? And then ultimately, they're saying, you know what, you have X amount of, you have a time frame to be able to repay that back. And we have to go through an annual process. So it's not like, you guys have heard the term evergreen lines, that is forever, forever, forever. This is not the case. There's a short-term need, it's structured in that sense, and it's reviewed every year.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
We bring the green.
Well, that was something.
All right. If there are no more questions, I would move to approve the line.
Second.
Okay. So approve the segment, all in favor?
Aye. All right.
No. So we have 3 ayes and 1 no.
Where do you go? So 5. So there needs to be 5 votes.
How many ayes we have?
We have an abstention?
Mina abstains, yes.
So does it carry or does it not carry?
3 of 5. Carries.
Carries, all right.
Okay, so that's item 7.3. Item 7.4, approval of the John Henry High School School Facilities Incentive Grant.
So this is the, you guys may be familiar with this. We have come up to the board over the last couple of years. We currently have the Charter School Incentive Grant, which is it's in addition to the SBA 740 grant. Right. SBA 740 primarily covers a portion or a percentage of our outstanding leases. Well, there's this grant that is basically spread over 3 years. We have the opportunity for the first time to apply for John Henry High. Why are we doing it right now? Well, because you have to be done before the John Henry High's, before their second request for renewal. So as far as timing, we have had the option over the last couple of years, but we've been conservative, just pushing this back until now. Just to give you an idea, last year we received about $14,000 over 3 years for the other 5 schools. So it's not a substantial grant, but anything, every little helps, and that's what it's tied to. Within your presentation, you kind of see it's what the Facilities Incentive Grant entails, and so we're seeking your approval in order for us to be able to apply for the CSFIG grant for John Henry High.
Gonna make the Friday deadline?
If I'm able to get the signature, we should be able to.
Any questions? All right, can I get a motion?
I move that we accept the facility consent grant proposal.
Second.
Black.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so that covers all of the 7.0 business items. We'll move on to presentations, starting with 6.1, the zero tolerance policy.
Hey, come on up. Were you going to introduce them at all? So let me introduce some of our students from Oakland Charter High School, and then I'll let the teacher out of QB say a few words. These students here are to present and ask for a board resolution that we redouble our efforts to enforce our anti-bullying and positive school climate policies and create a zero tolerance for hate speech place at all of our schools. These are representatives of Oakland Charter High School. We recommend that we return school sites, including teachers, deans, and leaders, to address all forms of hate speech, and also establish student assemblies and workshops to address these issues as well. We do have one school, BJE, which is an official anti-defamation league, no place for hate school. So we've got a good start there with our elementary schoolers. Again, these are two of our Oakland Charter High School seniors, Mr. James Fisher and Ms. Cassandra James. They reached out directly to our CEO, Mr. Lopez, and raised concerns about student use of hate speech in our schools. They were aware of the original policies and the oversight of the schools, and they said it was a lot tighter, and they felt reassured and safe at the schools, but now they've noticed that kind of a devolution and that the sites haven't adhered to the zero tolerance for hate speech before. I don't want to take any words out of their mouths, so I'm going to let them jump into their presentation, and if you have any questions of them, I'm sure they'll be happy to address them. Did you guys get your college acceptances yet, by the way?
Yes, we did.
And you're happy?
Very.
All right.
Can you share? Yeah. My name is James Fisher, by the way, and I have been in the AMP system since 7th grade. Originally, I was at American Indian in 6th grade, then I moved to OCA in 7th grade, and have been in the AMP system since then, and I'm now at Oakland Charter High School. So I'm going to be attending Howard University next year.
I'm Cassandra James. I've attended AMP since 6th grade all the way until now. I got accepted to San Jose State University, so I will be going there.
Alright, so the zero tolerance policy, this presentation as a whole, it's a presentation that we gave to our staff members at one of their just staff meetings on a Friday. So, can you do that? Anyway, so
We use the oldest, worst computer for our board.
there we go.
There you go.
Alright, so this policy pretty much states that we're trying to get rid of the racism, the sexism, and the homophobia in our schools. This is something that we have noticed since we came to the schools in Oakland Charter Academy all the way to high school. And racism, sexism, and homophobia are just like the three, the isms that we can kind of cover in that sense. But this policy is meant to expand upon all the different isms, which we'll explain further in the presentation. So the first one is one that we both have dealt with for our whole time in the school system, which is the N-word. There are not a lot of black students in the AMP system that, in our time there at least. So, for example, in OCA, in 8th grade actually, my first encounter with this word was, my nickname in 8th grade was Nigger Lips, and the whole 8th grade body thought that it was funny and it was cool, and no one really like educated them on the fact that that's not right. You can't call people that. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's none of that. And it's the word's derogatory. It's one of those words that when someone who's especially non-black throws the word in the air, whether it's the ER or the A version, it's in the air and then it kind of seeps down onto everyone. Some people, whether they're black or not, the non-black folks might just be relaxed, but the black folks and the few black folks in the room might really feel that way differently than the rest of the people. And that is kind of something that we have experienced almost on a daily since we started at AMP schools. So do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, so I'm both half black and half white, and so I call people out on using this word, and prior people would say, what does it matter to you? You're not black, like you don't look black. It doesn't matter regardless if I am black or not. It's not a word that should be used due to its past history of like blood soil. And so with sexism going around in our school, it also has to do with the culture and the misogyny going around with the Hispanic culture is believing that the male is always on top and all those kind. And we want to bring aware that these words aren't okay to throw around just willy-nilly.
Yeah, and this kind of behavior is very, very common. It's like a worldwide thing, really. But at schools, we don't teach children. We shouldn't be teaching children that is okay. That's not my role. And these are just a couple examples of the words, and it's not even just about the words themselves. It's about like the phrases and the attitudes that you have towards women too. Like the locker room talking boys being boys, just excuses that propagate rape culture. We've given presentations on this before. We've also given presentations, separate presentations on like the racist slurs too. But it's just this one in general. This is one that we really do want to combat because the female population in our schools, that's pretty much like 50% of us there. So we can't really be allowing the boys in the school to degrade the women in the school. So yeah, the next slide. And then there's the homophobia in the school. It's pretty common. These words, you've all seen them before. We all know what they mean. And what we tell our staff is that you've heard these words, you know what they mean, and you've heard them before, but you don't do anything about it. Therefore, indirectly, you're saying that it's okay. You don't have to tell a kid it's okay to say this word to make them think it's okay. There have been students who will shout out that word as loud as they can. They have done the same thing with the N-word and the B-word in the middle of classes, in the hallways, and nobody would react. Everyone just thinks it's normal because it is normal, unfortunately. And there are many LGBTQ students at our schools, a lot more, increasing as our school gets bigger too. And our school has to be a safe space for all students, no matter where they are, what their beliefs are, and just who they love. And that's I've spoken to the other students who are in the LGBTQ community, and they have told me that they hear this word and people have given them really rude comments about their orientation and about who they love and just their identity. And it's the comments that they make, the students make. They'll say things like, "Oh, that's gay," and they'll put like a negative connotation on that word, even though it's just a person can be gay and that's not a bad thing. You don't want to label a whole group of people like that. So yeah, that's homophobia.
It also has to do with the education surrounding it. At OCHS, we have this class called Link Crew, and I'm one of the Link Crew leaders in it. And so in our advisory, there's 6 Link Crew leaders assigned to each freshman advisor because we help the freshmen come up and feel accepted as a community. And within it, one of my Link Crew members, she is gay inside of it. And so one of the students made a remark that it really hurt her feelings. But it also had to do with the part that she didn't know what she was saying. She didn't know that it was bad what she was saying. So we also have to educate them in regards to, do you understand why you said this? Do you understand why this hurt her and stuff?
So this What Can We Do slide, it was designed mainly for the teachers that we were presenting to that day at the meeting. So the idea of the zero tolerance policy, for example, if a staff member were to hear a student say any of those racial slurs or just making or homophobic or sexist slurs or comments or any of that, we wanted to kind of back away from the pretty common AMPS policy of like harsh discipline, where it's like you make a small mistake and then detention, you make another small mistake and detention. Because I know from experience and from being around my friends at school that detentions, if you keep getting more and more, you're not going to learn from it at one point. And at one point, it's just like, give me two at one point. That's what students feel like for things like homework and stuff. At OCHS, we don't really do that, the whole thing where you get detention for missing a small homework assignment anymore. We have kind of a redemption system. It's the homework center. So if you miss an assignment, you don't just sit 60 minutes after school in a room with a ton of students who could have done way worse things than you did. So you're not just throwing everyone in one bus, like one boat of just like a whole, you're the bad kids group, but you're rather teaching them that you can grow from the situations. So the policy says that you see someone do this and you educate them, you call them out on it, you teach them, and you tell them, and you can also ask them like, why did you say that? Why did you think that was okay? What about it makes you think that it's okay to say those types of things to other people? And that kind of forces the student to just by default think about what they're saying. And it's not easy to justify calling someone the hard R or calling someone the B word like that. There are people who do justify it, but that's why we want to implement sort of like an educational opportunity beforehand, before we just go and go telling students don't say this, don't say that, when we catch them in those situations.
It's also one thing to do public humiliation, which I agree not a lot of teachers do it, but some teachers do where they'll call out a student right in class. However, being among the students, knowing that if you call them out, some of them are more rebellious and they will want to act out more against you. So it'd be better to either pull them out of class or not. If you don't want to do it in that moment, to create all eyes on them, I suggest talking to them like after class or after school to make them feel more at ease. Again, they might not know what they're saying, and if they do, then they'll just need another education lesson on it.
And so we wanted each staff member to kind of have like a default phrase, just because it's not easy to tell someone, if you're not Black and you're telling a minority student, don't say the N-word, because they don't know. They grew up in a community where people say that word all the time. And it's mainstream, it's just a thing at this point, from hip-hop and stuff like that. But we just requested that each staff member have like a phrase or a saying just to be able to put out there off the bat to say, oh, don't say this word. This one is well, it's like have like a saying of some sort, so you can kind of I don't know how to describe it, but all the different situations you can have. Know the backgrounds of the N-word, know the backgrounds of the B-word, know the backgrounds of the homophobic F-words, and whatever else, whatever other derogatory terms you have and actions that there are, and just kind of be ready to combat those, because the staff members at our school, they're all adults, and it's not that hard to teach your students not to grow up into this kind of this mentality that is kind of dividing people and pushing people aside on the daily. And so far at our school, this policy has been implemented for quite a while now, and it works. It's worked very, very well, actually. We have students now calling out other students. The other day, actually, I heard a Latino kid saying the N-word, and then his friend said, don't say that word, you can't be saying that, you're not Black and this isn't time for it. And people have shouted out the B-word too, and I've had my other friends say, please don't say that, I don't want to hear you say that. And they're men saying that too. So when you have like guys calling out other guys on their BS like that, it's very, very empowering to see that, and to see that people can grow and can change. But we really do ask that this policy be implemented into the AMP system, not just at our school, but at all the schools, especially the younger schools like Benito Juarez too. The younger children have to learn this from an early age, because that's where people hear the most things. That's where they get those, they see their peers and their teachers saying all these different things, and they kind of grow upon those environments that they're in. And we want this policy to be kind of as important as the uniform policy, because it's like dressing for success is very, very important, and AMPS does a very good job with that. And the uniforms, they help me personally too. I get up in the morning and just putting on like a collared shirt, it's not hard, it's just a uniform. Khakis, it's really not that much, they're just clothes. But as I've said before to like other staff members in other meetings, AMPS, we teach students to do things like dress for success, get like a blue or white collar job, and then still think that it's okay to call a woman the B word. And that's not something that we want amps to be able to do. Because we're all better than that. We know it, we've seen it, we've lived it, and it's just an opportunity for all of us to grow, really.
And we understand that you can't just stop it all together at once. Nothing happens with the snap of a finger. It all starts with you going back to the root of the cause, which is, again, the culture, and starting at the younger schools to get them to understand all of it all together.
And going to root causes, it's not just the words, like I said earlier, it's you can't just take out the words, and like Kibi was saying to us earlier, you can say that, oh, I don't hear the N-word or the B-word anymore in school, but those issues are still rooted in those students' life. And you just want to make sure it's like an educational process. We have advisories in our classes and for all the students. So we want to be able to use those times every now and then to keep educating the students, not just say, oh, the problem's solved, done, because it's never really solved. It's something that has to be an ongoing thing. It's like the uniform has to be something that on the announcements every day they say, everyone check your uniforms, have the teachers go around and check your belts. We don't do like as in-depth as that anymore, but things like that, we want to make sure that a policy like this is enforced just as much as a uniform policy, which is very, very high up in AMPS. So,
yeah, and getting students to realize that when they come to school, there's a sense of professionalism that they have to carry with them where they go. You can't just talk to a teacher the way that you talk to your friend. It's the same way you talk to others with the speech that you use. When you're outside, you can do whatever. We can't force you to say this. We can't tell you not to say something. However, when you come to school, you need to act a certain way, just as if when you go to a certain job, you need to act a certain way.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it for our...
Are there any questions?
Yeah, questions, please. Or comments, right?
I have a comment and a question. First of all, I want to congratulate you for having the courage and the mindfulness of really helping to shape the present situation that we have in this society and serving as a role model for future change. So thank you. Two things came to mind. You know, the racism, the sexism, and the homophobia are very obvious discriminatory comments. I'm wondering, in your experiences, and would you consider including two other groups that you didn't mention? That is the disabled person, both physical and behavioral disabilities that sometimes are invisible, and also body images that image, meaning large-sized folks or very small-sized folks, and these are other ways of discriminating or bullying. And I'm wondering if those things come up in your discussions?
So those didn't come up in our discussions. However, things like that do happen around our school. It's just not as well known as these things that happen. But when like the derogatory word like retarded comes up, we tell students don't say that word. Like that's not okay for you to say. Or like calling someone like, oh, you're fat. Like it doesn't matter regardless of your size. We enforce that around the school, like everywhere. So it's not as like we can still address it again, but it's not as big as these three issues.
And I do think that these three issues that we brought up, they were just the three that we can like, since they were the biggest ones, they were the easiest ones to discuss, but we do want this to be expanded to all other ideas that you all bring forward that you see. And we want this policy to be expanded on and grown whenever you see fit. It's not just like a one set in stone thing that can't really change. So, yeah.
So my question is, are you asking us to formulate a policy, or are you asking us to, in the current bullying policy, make this more evident?
Yeah, the latter actually. I read through the whole handbook just to find that thing, and I read over it multiple times, and I was like, it says it's pretty much this, but in our experience, it's not true. This kind of bullying situations are very much tolerated in a lot of the AMP schools. So we want it to be something that's emphasized, like I said, just as much as uniform, because it's almost baffling that a lot of staff members care more about a student's collar or belt more than they care about a student getting called a B word or being harassed. So, yeah.
So my question is, David, what's the process?
Well, you could ask us to include language from the presentation into the policy and then present it at the next meeting. There's also a draft resolution that you guys can read, and if you'd like to vote on it and sign it at the next meeting, you can do that as well. We can make that an action item. So those are two ways to go about it. The resolution is in your folders, and it asks you to resolve to redouble our efforts on these two already existing policies. So that would be one way, I think, to reach the goal that our students are presenting. Or we could also just readdress the policies and update them as well to include zero tolerance language. So if you just direct us whichever way you'd like us to go. There's a
I'm Kiri. I help teach the seniors at high school. So I just want to show you, James is in our student body government, so he's one of the senators, and Cassie's in our link leader program. So there's about 30 kids in our link leader program and another 15 in student body government. So Cassie and the other 30 kids did presentations that they talked about activities for a week. So that was one way that we dealt with the issue, is they were teaching kids about it, bringing awareness, and then being acceptance that, no acceptance that this would not be accepted. And you see that that's happening. And then James and student body government has said that each class should implement these types of measures within their classes and to try to work with other students around the school that may not understand or may not be the educational piece of it. So I think that what Mr. Stephan is saying is that, double down on these efforts, but I think these students are showing that they want to take the leadership and responsibility amongst their own campus. And I know that many of them would love to go to OCA or DCA and teach their siblings about what this is going on, help them empower themselves too. So that's up to you if you see fit to use the resources, but they just would like, I believe from the presentations I've had with them, to see that AMPS is saying that they will not, that they're going to work as a culture and ask their sites to make sure that they're holding their students accountable to the handbook and hate speech.
So to just kind of add on, that would speak towards directing us to bring the resolution as an action item. In the resolution, it compels staff and students to immediately confront these issues. And the mechanism by which we do it would be open-ended. Certainly we could leverage our student body who's already taken the lead on it. So I think that would kind of reach all concerns with you to instruct us to bring the resolution as an action item.
Well, let me ask you, have you read the resolution?
Yes, Mr. Oakland.
Is that something that you think would be helpful and useful for us to approve and support in terms of sort of announcing to the school population as a whole that this is not, this kind of behavior is not to be tolerated?
Yeah, I mean, I think the resolution did a pretty good job with covering that. So we'll just make sure. I mean, I don't see I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Good. You guys might want to see if maybe some edits before we bring it for
Well, I was
action.
going to ask that.
Yeah.
My major concern is I understand policy doesn't translate to changes in behavior. And that really seems what you guys are calling for is for the staff, teachers, or to support you all in changing behavior at the school. That's a deeper dive. It's a cultural thing. It's a deeper dive than like writing a resolution. So I'm kind of sitting with the question of how do we do that in collaboration?
It's one thing to have something written on a paper, but to actually enforce it. Like at our school, the uniform policy, it's written down on the paper, and every time like the student got addressed code, they're like, this is in the student handbook, you can't do this. You can do the same thing with the sexism and all the other words. Like this is in the handbook. When you come to school, you have to act a certain way to do what's in this handbook. When you're outside of school, whatever, do what you want. However, inside of the school, you have maturity to uphold, not only yourself but to others around you. Because it may not be offensive to you or your friends, but to others, like sitting in the back or too shy to speak up, it could be offensive to them, and they don't want to speak up about it.
Yeah, again, things like uniform policy, that's like more closely defined because it has just a list of rules that we have to follow, and they're crystal clear. I mean, if you break it, you break it. If you don't, you don't. But something like this, it's kind of vague in many different situations too. Though that all these words shouldn't be said, there are situations where students will come back to you and say, oh, well, I didn't mean like this, and this is more of a process of like explaining to them, teaching them, rather than just saying, oh, it's in the handbook, so you have to follow the rules, you're part of the school. the advisories, the advisory curriculums that we have, that's where we really want to implement some sort of educational opportunity. I don't know exactly how to do that yet, and we won't be here to see it, but we want to make sure that you all are kind of have it in your minds and are able to have some ideas floating in your heads soon.
We can email you those lesson plans that they use for the advisory lessons for the week, that they covered all of it. So there's a lesson plans, they all wrote it, they implemented it, and visual aids and stuff like that. We can email that to Mr. Stephan and present it to you guys to see if that is that deep dive that you're looking for to address the situation beyond the resolution.
You could also hold us to an agreement, so to go in tandem with the resolution. So here's the resolution, and where in the resolution it says you're supposed to, site director designee is meant to provide opportunities for meaningful student participation in school-wide events, assemblies, trainings, small group discussions. You can bind us time bound to actually following through on that if you would like to do this based on the resolution.
Why wasn't this presented as an action?
I don't know.
Can we agenda it? Yes, before the next meeting? The other thing that comes to my mind is there's a statement in quotes there that says the use of hate speech is unacceptable at OCHS. That says very clearly what the unacceptable behavior is. I'd like to see a way for modeling what good looks like, right? So for the students, what does it look like to be an exemplar at the way you treat your classmates and honor people who are different? Because that's often a conversation that's excluded from the whole mix. There are lots of environments where the negative is propagated. You said it, the music, you know, walking down the street, whatever. But there are not a lot of places where what good looks like is modeled for kids. So maybe, you know, I'm thinking that AMPS can be a bastion for that if we figure out how to do that.
Yeah. This policy is just like the kind of framework for it. We kind of expected for it to be built upon as much as possible with ideas like that too. And again, the advisory curriculums could implement things like that to teach more positive sides of it, rather than just don't do this, but do this. This is like the thank you for that.
So let me understand what we're doing. So essentially it will become an action item on the agenda for what action?
To sign the resolution.
And what about an opportunity for discussion about other resources that could be brought to bear here to help bring that to fruition?
Would you like us to craft some proposals for how we could address these issues in the site, or what do you think? Because you could instruct us to do that. We could bring that to the meeting as well.
I'm curious to know if it's part of any of the curriculum related to socio-emotional learning.
There are downstairs here at DCA. There's an active social emotional learning program. There's one at Benito Juarez. I don't know if it's been adopted at all sites, so there's an opportunity there. I know that next year we're adding more curriculum at all of our sites at SCL. It's been kind of a slow process, and I know you've been in conversation.
So I'm wondering if we could have some conversation with the folks who are teaching those courses so that we have some understanding of what the opportunities are. Does that seem right?
I'm also wondering if there are folks at each of the sites that are tasked with doing that, or not. If they're not, then I think we need to have to task someone at each site with that responsibility, and then look to.
And we're talking about staff.
Yes, staff, and look to see how we can get those folks collaborating around a solution. Because it can't be, I think it can't be spotty. It has to be kind of a global approach to.
We want to give you the support you need to make this work.
So I guess the first action item would be to identify if there's a staff member at each site that's responsible for that. If not, we would identify someone. And then
find out what the curriculum looks like for the social emotional learning piece, and see if there's a way to integrate this.
So is the advisory curriculum and the social emotional learning program, are they based on the same curriculum, or is it different?
It's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would be interested in seeing how they're different and how they might be integrated.
So if somebody could present on that would be great. Just a brief presentation.
So an information item,
Yeah.
and then the action item for the resolution.
Yes.
All right.
And an additional thought I just had, you know, as these two students are graduating, one of the legacies that we leave behind is some commitment to an annual reaffirmation statement that comes from board head to all the faculty and students, that this is an important policy to us, and we are reaffirming our commitment on an annual basis.
So it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
We can add that to the resolution.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to item 6.2, a regional update.
All right, so I'll be giving the regional update on behalf of Ms. Villa. Some of the key issues that have been going on is all the schools have been hosting the family staff team meetings where updates on school priorities have been reviewed. Right now they're gathering LCAP surveys as they begin to craft. You notice it's one of the other information items that we've begun crafting the LCAP at each site. Family staff teams are coming together to make their comments. They'll be presented to you in one of the next meetings for approval. We're beginning to start thinking about orientation already for next school year. Planning has begun for the summer summit, and our lotteries have all taken place in both regions to enroll Oak and enroll West Contra Costa. Enrollment looks strong for next year. I think we're expecting to grow by maybe, I don't know how many kids. How many kids are we expecting to grow by? Maybe
60?
About 60 kids. Yeah. All of our professional growth plans, we've finished with our third phase of PGPs. The priorities that we've been focusing on throughout the year in our PGPs with our leaders have been observation trackers with notes, ensuring that coaching is happening in the classrooms and it's being documented, lesson plan feedback, and also uploading that to a tracker to ensure that intellectual preparation has been happening before lessons have been taught. And then data analysis, anything from the smallest collecting exit tickets to kind of a real-time analysis of where students lie, to quizzes, and of course we're preparing for the end of the year CASP assessment. Last month, site leaders attended the last session of Relay, which has been one of our strong partnerships this year. Relay is the leader coaching course that we've been taking since the beginning of the summer. We sent a cohort, it's kind of a cohort-based leadership training. We started, I believe, in summertime, or like midsummer, and just finished our last session with Relay. And they provided us with some of the strongest tools that we've been using this year, including the See It, Name It, Do It tool, which is a coaching tool where you see the changes you want to see in the classroom, you present it to the teacher, you show examples, and then you have them go out and do it. And then you check right again the next lesson, not 2 weeks later, but throughout the day. Our site leader team is putting a framework together for new leader onboarding, structuring observations for teachers, and structuring observations that will capture data in real time. There's an attachment there, giving the effective feedback, one page. So that's one of the tools from Relay that you'll see. The testing window is open for CASP. The testing window opens on April 23rd. So we're hoping that our students are prepared and ready to go. I'm suggesting on site leaders bring breakfast to the students on those days and get them ready to test. On the 27th of March, Benito Juarez participated in the Critical Friend visit. The site director at Benito Juarez was a critical friend at another school earlier this year, and they offered her the opportunity to have the tables turned on her, and she accepted it. It was put together by the Melinda Gates Foundation. The report is in your folder, and there were a lot of growth areas noticed at the school, including a better understanding of our new ELA curriculum is needed, and there was also really a lot of positive things noted as well as far as the environment is concerned. The kids really enjoyed going to school. So they met with students, teachers, and site leadership. So it was a pretty comprehensive review. I urge you all to have a very close look at it. Or if you've already had, please ask questions and fire away.
What documents are you referring to? Because I don't see it here.
Oh, it's not in there. Well, I'll provide that to you all. Yeah. It should be in the regional update, but it's not there. John Henry.
What does it mean to have the Melinda Gates Foundation coming?
Okay, so what I'm understanding is the Melinda Gates Foundation paid for the person to come in and do the critical friend visit.
They sponsor the group.
Right.
It's a collection of site leaders from other charters in Richmond. And also there's an organization out of Florida called the 102, and they are they're similar to the Charter Accelerator that we take part in, and so they're experts.
What did they do?
Oh, they came and viewed the school, and they assessed the school, and they gave a review of the school, kind of like a report card for what they observed that day.
So we see the report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there follow-up with the Melinda Gates Foundation?
No, there's no follow-up. They leave notes. They leave recommendations, but there's not another touch point.
Why do we do this?
Just to have another set of eyes at your side and point out gaps that you may not have noticed, or maybe to reinforce gaps that you have noticed but you weren't so sure about, or to get a nice pat on the back. But it's a chance to also be invited to go be a critical friend at another charter school. So it's a chance to network and get to know what other charters are doing and to share best practices. So again, it started with her visiting another school as a critical friend, and then she was given the opportunity to invite them into her school.
So there's no linkage really with the foundation?
There's
No, they just pick.
I would argue that there is a touchback point, and I'd like to talk to you.
Okay.
So we're going to get the report.
You'll get the report.
Upload folder.
This is similar to when we had bellwether visit.
So it's like analogous observation.
Absolutely.
And we got the bellwether report?
I don't know. Have you? The last meeting we talked about, I don't believe it was uploaded. You'd like to see that as well?
Like to see that as well.
I meant the amp scale.
Oh yeah, we got it. We just got it. It's been finished. No.
When did you get it?
Last week.
So if you look upload both of those things, that'd be good.
Right. One of Ms. Via's goals that she wants to lift out for this meeting is to ensure that student safety is paramount at the schools. School counselors were not always under the supervision of site directors, but she knows as a former counselor she has some ideas how to build consistent communication between school counselor and site leadership teams, along with having calendar events with specific tools. So she's looking to offer a full report in May, June meeting, the work that she's meeting with our counselors to ensure that school safety is a higher priority. Our teachers, our leaders are attending teacher recruitment fairs regularly. There was one fair today that was attended by an elementary school. We're heavily recruiting for in the next few months. We have a number of vacancies, and I have to say, I think that the attendance of the fairs has not been that great. So the teacher shortage is revealing itself to be real once again. But we are actively, and we've had some good applicants come through, and we've made some hires. You're going to hear from OCA later about the strides that they've made. They've made a number of hires that are fully staffed, which is quite remarkable, but I'll let them do all the talking about that. We've had some college acceptances, as you've heard. Howard, San Jose State. I believe we've got our first Harvard, UCLA. So we've had some really great successes as far as college acceptance is concerned. And there'll be a full report or list made in May once they've all come through. Our middle schools are currently looking into a new science framework for the upcoming school year to address the new next generation science standards. And you'll be hearing a presentation about that tonight as well. Our site director at DCA is doing a lot of work gathering different curricula and working with teachers to identify what's the strongest. So that concludes the regional instructional update, and I will make sure that those reports are uploaded and sent. I'll just send them to you all. And we can talk about them at the next meeting if you'd like. It would be great.
I'd also like to talk about follow-up with foundations, so that we see the context.
Gotcha.
So there was one comment made about the summer summit planning.
Yes.
I think that I would like to ask that there be a session on the zero tolerance policy and a training for staff at that summit. That be something that takes place there.
Good idea. Okay.
Okay, so we have one public comment on the next item, which is the OCA update. So Ana Bertha Garcia.
Did we skip the LCAP update?
We did. We skipped the LCAP update.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more before. I apologize for that. Let's go to item 6.3, the LCAP update.
Yes, I can keep it very short since we discussed the LCAP the last few meetings. It's just important to let you know that schools right now are holding meetings with parents to communicate what they're looking to put in the LCAP and to get their approval. They will be coming to you, the public meeting for approval. We'll be seeking approval in June. I think that's about all I want to say about that.
I have some questions.
Would you like to add something now?
Okay. So I read through all of the updates, and there were some things that I was concerned about. The first was with BJE. There's an obvious decline in terms of performance of English learners, and there was no indication on steps to address the performance gaps. There was no text inserted where there should have been some indication of what the steps were. On DCA, I'd like to know how we can reach out to the 55% of parents who did not return end-of-year parent surveys. I'd like to think about how we could do a better job there. On JHSS, so 46.2% of staff expressed satisfaction with professional support and development. It was $27,000 budgeted. I'd like to know what was budgeted in previous years, and I'd like to know what this provides. I have an ongoing question about how we're purchasing the necessary Chromebooks, and if we could seek some donations of those materials rather than spending money, because basically there's only an $8,000 increase in the 1920 budget for OCA. So unless there's a better idea out there, maybe we should seek some funds elsewhere. And I'm happy to help with that. And in RCA, the math scores have experienced a decline of 42 points. I know that there's some trainings planned. Only 78% of the teachers trained in the standards. So I don't understand why we didn't spend our budget out on that line if we have a deficit there.
to be having individual site directors making presentations?
Today, yes.
Not the next board meeting.
I could have them each direct these questions specific to their site. I'll have them work with Ms. Bia.
Other questions? All right, let's move on to item 6.4, and we'll call on Ana Bertha Garcia for public comment.
Yes, 1 minute transfer. Double the time.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ana Berta García, soy mamá de una niña, de una estudiante de Oakland Charter Schools, y mi preocupación es...
Good afternoon. My name is Berta Garcia. I'm sorry, but just hold on a second. What's going on with the clock? Oh, yes.
So it's running up just 1 minute.
I just press start and then I watch. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Berta Garcia. I am the mother of a student of Oakland Charter Academy. And my concern is...
Mi preocupación es la siguiente, la escuela de mi niña se está quedando sin maestros.
My daughter's school is getting out. It doesn't have enough teachers. All teachers are leaving.
Mi niña este año es una transición la que a ella le va, yo pienso que le va a afectar porque se quedó sin una maestra y sus calificaciones para mí son bien importantes en su récord porque es lo que le va a ayudar a ser una niña como la que se acaba de ir para llegar a la universidad.
So one of my daughter's teachers left, and I'm very concerned. This is a very important year, and her notes, her grades are really important, so she can be like the girl that was here earlier, and she can apply and go to the university.
Entonces mi inquietud es esa, o sea, yo quiero saber el por qué nos están dejando. Este año ya llevamos el segundo director y en la escuela todos los grados les hacen falta los maestros.
So I want to know, this is my concern, why is it that you're letting this happen? This school year, this is the second director, and every school year, every class is short on teachers.
Como mamá de una estudiante, estoy preocupada por su futuro.
As a mom, I'm concerned about her future.
Yo de las escuelas La Charter he tenido buena experiencia, pero de verdad este año estoy desilusionada.
I've had good experience with charters, but this year I'm disappointed, to tell you the truth.
El punto que pusieron los muchachos también para mí es bien importante, que haya cero tolerancia y que empiecen con nosotros como padres.
What the young students were talking about the zero tolerance is also very important for me, and that should start with us as parents.
Porque yo estoy de acuerdo, mi niña el año pasado sufrió bullying dentro de la escuela y nunca me le ayudaron.
And I agree, because my daughter last year, she suffered for a lot of bullying in school and nobody helped her.
Les pido que pongan un poquito de su tiempo hacia nuestra escuela, porque es una comunidad de gente latina y queremos sobresalir.
And I ask you to put a little bit of your time in our school, because our school is, most of the students are from a Latino community, and we want to do good. That's it.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6.4, OCA update.
Hello. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it. I'm Lucas Kelleher. I am the Site Director and Principal of Oakland Charter Academy. My first day was January 28th. And I wanted an opportunity to give you an update on the ongoing just efforts of improvement. And I wanted to just start by again thanking you for your time. And before I came to this meeting, I had a call with my leadership and curriculum coach, and I was telling her about all the things that really these two people who really didn't have to be here, who I asked and wanted to be here and are instrumental in the success, the continued success, and will be instrumental in terms of the ongoing success of this school. I was talking with my leadership coach, and she's like, you know, the big fancy person that comes in and gives you all these advice, and I was telling her all about, you know, these two individuals who are going to do a lot of the talking here. That when I was going through, she's like, you know what, it seems like you're in a completely different spot, because she's like, Lucas, you know, great schools aren't, you know, automatically good. There's schools that are seeking improvement, not because someone is asking them to, because they want to help the communities in which they serve. And I can't speak volumes enough about how these two have been so instrumental to this success. And like from the bottom of my heart, I couldn't have done it without them. I just wanted, so we're the OCA Seniors Leadership Team, even though I'm the principal, like these are two major workings of how we've been able to really turn things a corner. And I want to introduce Ms. Miller, who's our incoming curriculum coordinator for next year, and 6th grade ELA and science teacher, the pinnacle of teacher leadership and empowerment and ownership. And I think she really embodies, you know, one of the OCA, just like the AMETHOD core values of students first. And when anything and all decisions she brings up in senior leadership team meetings, it's always about the students. And then Dr. Ellenberg, our Dean of Students, who has been crucial and super critical in supporting just the culture and climate efforts at our campuses. And so, as you know, someone who is, you know, a formidable teacher leader, I wanted her to kind of give you the academic update and the academic and instructional programs we have and the improvement efforts, as she has been one of the critical systems and bedrock of our campus.
Hello. Good to see you again. As you guys know, my name is Allison Miller. This is my second year at OCA. I'm the 6th grade English and science teacher. I am going to talk about lots of things because we've had lots of exciting changes at OCA. I would like to address our lovely parent that came out today and spent some time coming to voice her concerns. It's no secret that OCA has had a really rough past few years. We've had a lot of teacher turnover. We've had a lot of site leader turnover. I can't fix the past, and I'm sorry that I can't, and I'm sorry that it's caused a lot of pain to our students and our staff members. But I like to believe that I can help the future of OCA. So that's my mission and my purpose for going to work every day. So I want to talk a little bit about how we've been doing that. Okay, so when I was here last board meeting, I addressed a lot of the staffing concerns. We had multiple gaps that we had to fill, and after that board meeting, there was more gaps that we had to fill. We have replaced, or not replaced, but we have filled a 6th grade social studies teacher, a 7th grade math teacher, 3 paraprofessionals. So those are, I'm not sure how familiar you are with paraprofessionals, but 2 of those are tutors in classrooms, and 1 is a culture and climate paraprofessional that's helping us run things like detention and Saturday school and keeping the hallways safe and clear and kind of just being that like safety officer kind of for us at our campus. And we also have a 7th grade English teacher that is going to be starting any day now once the live scans and all of that fun stuff clear. So as far as the staffing concerns, we still do have 1 recent position that we are trying to fill, which is an 8th grade science position. That was a hard hit for us. It was not expected, much of the other positions that we had to fill. It did happen Sunday night before the students returned on spring break. So we did not recruit for that position. We didn't really see it coming. We are actively interviewing people for that position. As Stefan mentioned, there is a teacher shortage, and especially this late in the year, teachers are looking for next year. And we've offered positions for next year. We need this year, but that's a challenge that we are facing right now. We did it with many of our other gaps, so we're crossing our fingers and we're trying our best. The week before spring break, I think we did like 10 interviews in 3 days for the positions that we got filled. So as those applications are coming in, I'd like our parents and students to know that we are calling within minutes of us getting them, because we don't want you to be without a teacher. As far as what's going on now, I've been lesson planning for the 8th grade science class. We do have a substitute in there that has been able to implement those lesson plans. I've been doing all the grading for the classes, so their grades are being updated. And the students, I've heard feedback that the students are enjoying the class and that they're getting the work done. And they do enjoy the paraprofessional that's currently in here. She's able to teach them and really connect with the kids. So that is something. I'm going to go ahead and move on to teacher duties, which falls under the category of safety for me. So we are in the heart of East Oakland, I believe. We have a homeless encampment behind us. We are on International Boulevard, basically. So we have implemented, especially second semester, teacher duties. So what that looks like for us is in the morning, there's a teacher at the front gate to greet the students to come in. There's a teacher in the hallway to make sure the students are kind of like shuttled and moved through out to the playground. There's a teacher out on the playground to ensure that students aren't getting up to any funky business that middle school students do. And then we have our 2 admin staff that kind of just rovers around and fills any gaps in case the teacher is absent or not in their morning post. Quality. Our quality of our education at OCA is really important to me. We are really pushing for the implementation of our NAMS policies that I've been looking for since the beginning of the year, that I was a bit concerned that we weren't working towards. I can say that lesson plans are being asked for. Gradebook updates weekly are being asked for. And that's, those are the policies that I think that we were looking for. I wanted to know that I was being held accountable for turning in my stuff. I wanted to know that somebody with more educational background than myself was looking at my stuff. So I was able to provide the quality of education that I want to my students. So that is happening with our new leader, which makes me excited because I'm able to alter my lesson plans if he can give me some feedback throughout the week and some tips, which is great. As far as student events, I wanted to touch on those a little bit. We met with our FST president this morning about graduation and our end of the year student dance. So we planned a lot about that, so more to come for that for our students and parents. There will be a dance and there will be graduation, and they will be more cost friendly than last year. So our goal is to serve the students, not make money. So we're working on that. English language learners, I spoke about that at my last meeting because as an English teacher, I was struggling with that and what to do with my diverse classroom. As a 6th grade teacher, it's hard to know where your kids are. You spend the whole year trying to figure out their ability and match it and grow. I can say that while we did not bring the language class back for a few different reasons, I feel supported as an English teacher as far as getting resources and help assisting my students that are English language learners within my classroom. I'll let you discuss in a minute. The last thing that I'll say before I take any questions is I am excited to come to work every day. And I had a rough start to OCA and to AMS. And I really appreciate all the hard work that the higher-ups have put into OCA. And it's not perfect. And, let's see. I don't know that you're going to see perfect before you leave. But I want you to know that I don't come to work at 7 and stay till 6 to just hang out, okay? We're trying, really. I want you to get accepted to all those colleges that those other kids did, all of our kids. And I want to know that we helped give you that opportunity, okay? I'm going to let department because he's a sped guru and I am not. But do you have any questions for me?
I just want to thank you for your comments. Thank you for your enthusiasm. I hope it's contagious. You know, a lot of teachers things are turning around. Thank you.
So I did have a couple of questions. As you bring in these teachers mid-year, what kind of things are you doing to support the teacher onboarding? I mean, being a parent myself, I understand those mid-year transitions are really challenging for students and teachers. So I'm just interested in knowing how you're transitioning those in.
So I'll speak to the 6th grade team member that we brought on. We brought on a 6th grade teacher named Mr. Welsh. He came highly recommended to us, and he was an amazing asset to the team. He's been working really closely with myself on getting to know our students and our needs. As a social studies teacher, it kind of pairs with ELA, so we've had a lot of fun and a lot of hard work put into him onboarding in his process. As far as behavior concerns, which as a teacher that came on mid-year, I understand that. I came on in December last year, so or 2 years ago. It's difficult. Usually kids test you for the first month that you have them, and when you're running into the last 2 months of school, it's a little worrisome because you want to get as much education in as possible. What I can say is that with our culture and climate professional, our dean of students, and our site leader, I have no doubt that anything that teacher needs, one of those 3 people are able to provide that for them. Whether it be just a silent presence in the back of the class, which is honestly usually enough, or an additional classroom management tool that teacher might need. I have faith in them because they've been there for me when I've needed it. But I think I'll let him speak about the rest of the onboarding process.
So the other thing I'm interested in addressing the grief of the students and their loss.
Yeah. We do. I mean, so the thing is, we do have good conversations with. We do try and address it with students, and we do try and have other teachers also address it. So there's multiple layers of communication from admin to teachers. So it's not just it's coming from multiple things, and we try and just have very consistent messaging from teachers to admin from in terms of their turnover. And there's certain things that we can and cannot say, but we communicate as much as we can to students, and we do. I mean, but then we do try and get kids excited for the new teacher, and it is hard. You do have to respect the process, but I think in the process of onboarding and supporting the culture work, that we are there and very present, and show that we do really support and do really believe that this teacher is capable of providing them a high quality education. And in terms of the onboarding, the one thing that I've really empowered Ms. Miller is just to be as an incoming curriculum coordinator and teacher leader and just sort of teacher empowerment expert. She's almost kind of that first layer of thought partner, that she's a colleague, and anytime a principal walks into the room, it feels evaluative. And so the thing is that we have a dedicated thought partner to really work through some just basic issues, because you don't want to look dumb in front of the boss. And certain things that come up that's easier for Miss Miller to answer, and that she knows the kids so well, it makes it a lot easier. So she's been very helpful with with the new teachers who've come on board. But then obviously I provide the support in terms of I'm in there quite frequently, providing just very quick wins, very, very light feedback to things to just tighten things up and trying to take a step back. But then also empowering them and having the really dedicated thought partner that doesn't feel evaluative, which I think is really important when you're coming into a situation mid-year. There's all this sort of tension, and so that's why we have really the teacher leader who's empowered to be that dedicated thought partner, who really knows the kids super well in and out. They've taught them, and so I think that's been a crucial part of the process, is really empowering Ms. Miller to take on that role of being that layer of support, rather than just me being there. And there's always kind of that feeling, sense of judgment from admin, and that's why I sold it to them as this is an extra layer of teacher support that is
here to hear.
Yes.
Okay, and then I had thank you. A couple of
student? Is it integrated education that the kids need, or is it pull out separate education that the kids need? I see the benefits for both sides of it. Unfortunately, our decision was made for us at the beginning of the year from a previous site leader that the class was no longer. The reason that we decided not to bring it back this late in the year was we couldn't find a teacher for it. It would mean, because all the language kids were intermixed in all of the other classes, it would mean a whole new master calendar, a whole new class roster system. We are working next year to figure out what our kids need, whether that be a separate class or more in-class support, meaning more paraprofessionals to maybe have that class or have that student integrated in the class, but some sort of like pull-out system one-on-one to teach them that language piece that they're missing. Did that answer the first part of your question? Kind of. Okay. The second part of what we've done is kind of, and I hate to say it, but as like a Band-Aid for the year, is Mr. Kelleher has an amazing English language teaching background. So he's been able to purchase some supplies for the classrooms in order to kind of make sure that the kids are growing. And I think that that's everybody's biggest concern is how much time did they waste? A whole year? Like, wow, my kid went to school for a whole year and learned nothing. That's insane. So it is a Band-Aid, but I was able to kind of differentiate my instruction along with Mr. Kelleher's help to make sure that our language kids weren't getting left behind and that they were still growing even though it wasn't at the rate in which I wanted them to, which I don't think is realistic because obviously I want them to be as best as they possibly can, as fast as they possibly can. But he helped me prepare a novel unit for those students. Some in-class like daily oral language drills. One of the reasons we hired so many extra pairs was so that the English classes would have some help in the class to kind of assist with that work that the students are being asked to complete, but might not be able to by themselves.
Let me ask you, do you have an opinion on whether separate classes for English learners is better than immersion? Because there is the argument that the immersion is better than separate.
Yeah. So I've actually had the opportunity to see both. Last year, it was separation, and this year it's been immersion. What I've seen less of, to be honest, is isolation for our English language learner students. I've had the opportunity to see my non-English language learner students step up and themselves become peers that my English language learner students can look to, which as a teacher, I get a little, happy inside when I see my other students teaching my other students. It makes me really excited. So I've had the opportunity to see that. But I've also seen the students grow in the separate environment substantially. So I don't know. I don't know that I have a valid opinion on it because I feel kind of torn. I guess it depends on what's important to you or to the person that's evaluating it.
I just want to clarify. The model that we have is that the students take the English in a separate class, but during history, math, and science, they are immersed with all other students. So it is only for the English.
But at OCA, it ends up being a little bit different because we have less classes. So because we only have 3 teachers per grade, what has happened in the past is those kids, and it won't be the whole class, but those kids often stay together throughout the day. So they will go to regular history class, regular math class, and there, might be 40% English language learners in that class and 60% non-English language learners. So they are mixed, but they are still kind of separated in a sense, which was our previous site director's idea, which was like, that's ridiculous, we can't track kids and do that, which to a degree I understand that. But again, I think it depends on what's important to you. And I don't know that I've formed an opinion yet. I'll let you know in August, or in June.
And what does the research say? Like,
I'm not,
So I'd say, so I can just figure out, you don't want to interrupt her, but so it's, in my previous role, I was an EL network specialist, English learning specialist for the Noble Network of Charter Schools, and so the thing is the research is mixed. So the thing is I'll just kind of dive right into in terms of like the special education and EL stuff, which also Stefan, did you put it in their folder plan? Yeah. So there is a thing in your folder with detailing pretty explicitly. So I have a special education background and an EL background, and so one of the things in terms of what the research says is that you utilize very strong specific processes in terms of the use of universal screeners, which we're introducing into OCA next year with the AMETHOD test assessment battery and the use of DIBBLs. So we'll have a good way of screening and monitoring progress, not just for EL students and SPED students, but then also all of our students, because then you're able to get a sense of equity in terms of that these assessments are also locally and nationally normed when you utilize AMETHOD and DIBBLs. So we're able to get a sense of how students are performing within the context of schools around us, in our own school, but then also nationally, as if there are national norms for those specific things. So the one thing that I'd say that we are moving towards in terms of like full implementation of NTSS, the use of universal screeners to identify, then, and revamp our services delivery model. So that's the question we all grappled with at Noble, was how do we have these very high academic standards, but then we have these students with high areas of need. So the one thing that we're doing is we're introducing the slow roll of introducing these universal screeners, and just the use and building of a services delivery model that is responsive to students. But you can't do that without a significant body of data, which we're slowly beginning to collect. And in terms of, we had our education specialist leave us due to some significant personal reasons. So we really addressed that gap by, we have a special education pair and we have our program specialist working with us very closely on my social education credential. So I'm licensed in the state of Illinois. The state of California likes to take their sweet time. We've begun the process of applying for emergency credentials so I can supervise those minutes more and help recruit them faster. And we've been having Saturday schools, which I've been working with Ms. Andrade and myself to help recruit those minutes and make sure those kids are getting service and their goals are being progress monitored for. So in terms of short answer, the research says you develop a services delivery model that's responsive to student needs through data, which is where we're moving towards and which is what we're implementing. So one of the things that you see in a lot of IEPs and across, you're not even see, it's not an Oakland thing, it's not an AMS thing, it's a nationwide thing. In terms of our full IEP goals, we're moving towards more linking those towards actual assessment data and having them be like, those SMART goal time bound. So that's one thing we're working towards at OCA than just AMS wide. And so I think, so in terms of, I'm sure you're gonna have a ton of questions, but the real big push is that we're really implementing a lot of stronger assessment and universal screening practices to help inform that services delivery model. So the data does show, we did a lot of work at Noble that is like what proficiency band places a student in something that would require more pull-out support or an actual ESL reading class or an ESL language class, certain things like that. Those are proficiency bands that are decided upon within the use of nationally normed data, which is what we're introducing. That's my update. And like I said, I wanted to I feel like I talked too much. So I want to talk about numbers and talk about just like the culture and climate things that we've implemented.
Good evening. I'm Phil Ellenberg, and this is my first year with AMPS and my first year at Oakland Charter Academy. I love AMPS. I'm excited for this opportunity. Been working with Mr. Kelleher since he arrived, and just want to briefly tell you a bit about my role and how I played a part in this year's movement and the through the tumultuous, through the ups and downs. Well, I'm from Oakland. I'm a product of Oakland schools. Born and raised in Oakland, product of all of the public schools, elementary, junior high, and high school. So I do have that connection. With all of the transitions this year, it's been kind of cool. I've been a constant. I've been here. And so I've been able to be sort of the glue with the parents, so the glue with the staff, the teachers, even the lunch ladies. I mean, the whole. I've been able to just kind of settle some things, and also to be a bridge for our new hires and our new site director. And so initially I had to do a lot of discipline stuff because of the fact we had so many transitions. And with transitions and with people leaving, students will try to figure out, you know, what's what to do. And so a lot of time we dealt with disciplinary stuff. And so that's unfortunate, but I got a chance to deal with many parents and make a lot of connections. And so even with Mom and Letty, I know most of the kids by name. And again, this is my first year, and so they know that about me. They know that I'm from here. They know that I love them. And that has been a big piece of the turnaround in terms of how well we're doing now. Of course, we've had a lot of change, and of course, we're not where we're going. But people who knew of what we went through would be totally shocked to walk through the halls again. They would be totally shocked to walk in some of the classes again because of the swift turnaround and the ability to get new hires on. We have teachers in our classes. We have recruited and we've hired paras. And one of the paras that I like to brag about and talk about is one that Mr. Kelleher, it was his idea. And it is our para that's not only supporting in the classrooms, he's also helping and assisting in the area of our climate, culture and climate. And so with him assisting in simple stuff like lunchroom supervision, monitoring transitions from class to class, helping with detentions, manning our detention. We've seen just a swift and immediate change with those small pieces, and it's allowing us again to be able to reconnect with families, allowing me again to do stuff outside of just being the bulldog. And so we see the progress, and we are excited to be here, and that's why I'm here too, because I support AMPS, I support Mr. Kelleher, and I'm very excited to see our emerging senior leadership team member. We've gone through a lot, but the future is bright, and I'm here just to say that it is bright at OCA, and I'm excited to be here. And this year, we're not just saying we're just going to dump in and wait for next year. We are working now to make sure that the students get their grades and make sure that they're being prepared for the CAF and being prepared for those who are leaving the high school to be ready for high school. We didn't quit. We're getting ready for next year, but we didn't quit. This year, we're working hard to get them through. And I'm not afraid to say that, again, we've had some challenges and stuff, but we are okay at OCA. Thank you so much.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
So we'll move on to item 6.5, middle school science.
I will try to be brief. I have two handouts. I will pass them right now so that it will become easier. Just one. One. There is another one. Thank you. One of each, and it will make sense. measure for understanding the world and the universe. The good news is that with the new generation science standards, the scope in which that they use to develop those standards has to do exactly with that. With creativity, with inquiry, with letting the students do the heavy lifting. For the past 2 years, we use curriculum that is called the NOALO, and this year we found that it was too expensive, and when we met with the providers at the beginning of the year, we asked, okay, what have you done for the implementation of the new standards? And they didn't have any clear path, or we didn't have any ideas or receive any information that they were actually going to implement the new standards. So we went and we started looking for programs, and we decided to analyze 2 different programs. One is STEM Scopes. It was developed by Rice University and is widely used everywhere. It was recommended to us by Bellwether and by the School District of Philadelphia. The other program that we decided to look into is called FOSS, and the FOSS program was developed by Lawrence Berkeley Lab and is used by the Berkeley Unified District. So both programs are really used everywhere in the country. What we found is, let me go to the next one. Yeah. We use a very simple methodology. We form a group of evaluators that were all the science teachers for the middle schools and the elementary schools, the deans of instruction, and the principals and Ms. Dilla. And we all look into, we developed a very specific and long rubric to analyze the programs, but really they were just about the depth in content, the high interest for students, the implementation of the standards, and that it was based on inquiry, and also we look at the quality of resources and the support for teachers and students, of course. So we found, with regard to the implementation of the AMETHOD, the new generation standards in science, we found that we looked into the 3 dimensions of the standards. These dimensions have to do with the implementation of engineering, the core content, and the cross-curricular opportunities for students. And we found that although in both programs the depth of the content is very good, we found that for the STEM scopes it was not a clear connection to the standards. They were there, but they look as if they were in the process of integrating the standards. For the FOSS, we found that the 3 dimensions were embedded in the program, and that, thank you.
Now we can read it.
Yes. And we found that in the teacher's guides and in the labs and the activities for the students. Okay. With regard to instruction, we pay attention to the progression of the standards, the professional development, and the planning for teachers. We found that the organization for the STEM scopes was really solid, was really good, but the teachers for the planning, they had to do a lot of work. That is okay, teachers are used to that, but new teachers is very cumbersome for new teachers. We also found that the professional development was different, that for the STEM scopes, they provided one professional development for the first year. In FOSS, they provided professional development, ongoing professional development for 3 years. We also found that the progression for the FOSS was very clear, that teachers didn't have to do any extra planning. And also they provided some slides for presentations and helping with instruction. They had a high support for teachers and students. And I would like you to look, and this is the reason why I learning, we took into account the inquiry-based learning, the high interest for students, the kind of assessments students will have, homework and extension, differentiated instruction, English learners, and the depth of knowledge. We found that for STEM scopes, they had a great thing that was that they offer teachers the possibility of tailoring the assessments and changing these assessments. They also had great graphic organizers that help with differentiated instruction, and, but there was no clear pacing. For the FOS, we found that they had clear units, strong guiding notes for students. Students were taking notes. They had the notes there and they were very strong. Learners, and they also offer graphic organizers. The clear pacing, the scope and sequence really in the STEM scopes is up to the teacher. And that's very hard because sometimes teachers don't have the time to really look into the curriculum and decide which are the standards that I want to teach this year. Am I doing it in a good pace? So it's about what to teach and when to teach. So that FOS was very strong in that. It was easy for them to do it because it was already done. Other things that we looked into was the proximity of the resources. We also looked at the programs in action. I already told you about teacher professional development. That is really, they offer 3 years in the FOS program. We also found that our students could visit the Lawrence School of Science. They also offer a very strong summer seminar for teachers, and they also come into the schools and the classrooms during those 3 years to implement the program with them. With regard to money, and I'm happy Mr. Mendoza is here, because he's going to ask those questions, the program's cost actually even out. If you see the cost, and let me show you here, STEM scopes for 336 students, the students were going to have a DCA next year, is 12,000, and for FOS is 20,000. However, for STEM scopes, they charge for professional development. So it becomes like 17,000 if you count the 3 years PDs that the progress in the other program. Also, the quality of the resources is different. The quality of the resources in FOS is very, very strong and beautiful. Another thing is that they allowed us to purchase the things that we need, just the little things, not the big package of things, but just the little thing that we need to replace. So in the long term, it's a good investment. And the cost with regard to the program that we used for the past 2 years is 55% less. We used to pay 36,000 for Novato. This would be 20,000 for FOS. And the same prices for all the schools. I actually, if you like to see, I have reports for all the middle schools and the elementary schools. It's about 20,000, even though the elementary school has more students, but they don't see science as often. So they require different products, and I have these things here that I will be happy to share with any of you. And I promise you this was going to be short. I thought it was short. So the conclusion is the teachers selected the FOS curriculum. And it was really their call, of course, with our guidance. But they say that the experiments were very interesting for students. They were things that they could relate and understand. They were fun and organized. Planning was easier for the teachers, especially for new teachers. The standards were integrated. Very strong support for teachers, organized supplies, and so we say that FOS would be the best program for us, and we hope to stick with FOS for many years. We read the education report also for this analysis, and they recommended the programs that Berkeley is using, and they are actually the only programs so far that they approve. Amplify for high school and for middle schools and elementary schools. They are the ones who actually comply with all the new generation science standards. And I guess this is a vote for next meeting, right?
It's a vote for next
so
meeting.
that's the information. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. I really want to say thank you for reading and the things and reports that we produce. I know it's a lot of work, and so we appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6.6, budget update.
Hello, board members, once again. Actually, it's a nice segue, right? So, you guys have a presentation in your board folder. In essence, the first slide that you have with you guys, it basically just talks about, kind of like the development process that we go through. So, this month, what's coming up within that calendar is that we're in the process of making revisions. Going through revisions in April, in May. Ultimately, we'll bring up the upcoming budget to you guys with the projections for the next few years, and then we'll ultimately vote on it in June. So that's the first slide. What you will see in some of the assumptions that we have made so far, it's just basically kind of crystallize what the fixed variables are. And those fixed costs is in relation to our current rents, and of course the CPI adjustment that we already know are coming up. Our insurance costs, actually we just met with Charter State, so we're looking for areas to kind of either minimize costs or get a little bit more coverage. And as far as the ultimate budget figure that you have, we also have allocated and added the additional debt. What does that mean? Well, the additional debt in comparison to what we currently have, you also may recall we went out and bought a fleet of vehicles, so we're probably going to start paying that pretty soon, right? Actually, the vehicles have not arrived yet, but they should be coming in sometime between May and June. But, we're factoring those variables already. And, we just talked about the $3 million line, so projection to that. That figure that you see also is projecting the annualized cost for the line of credit. Enrollment, as you will know, we're currently looking at another trajectory growth, about 134 kids laid out throughout the different sites. And so that will bring us up to about 2133, about 2122, 3150 kids max. And in addition to that, one of the major changes that we also have factored in is the fact to be cognizant of what the political environment is out there. As you all know, Oakland Unified just kind of, had in essence an increase in certain services and also added benefits for the teachers. So what we factor in here is an actual CPI 3% adjustment for those teachers and an additional 3%. So what you're seeing in essence moving forward for the upcoming budget is a 6% increase for our, the people that do the heavy lifting, right? For our teachers. Now, we also, and this is also, just to give you an idea, we kind of looked at what the entry level or teachers are currently being compensated, both at the Oakland Unified and also at West Costa. And so that would place us at par with that. And we talked about, I think about 2 years ago, we also talked about the possibility of increasing teacher salary once again. So here we are, we're projecting out, and we're trying to, come up to par to that. Some of the items that are still, this is still preliminary, so some of the items that are still yet to be determined is, as you well know, we're currently going through the administration, academic team is currently going through the LCAPs and kind of having those discussions with parents, kind of crystallizing exactly what their outcome is going to going to be reflective, and then, you know, ultimately you guys are going to be approving outcaps next year. So those are still, items are still in the works. We also have, we're trying to get a sense of what the curriculum needs are going to be for next year. You just heard from Ms. Lee, and she has a particular project in mind with a certain cost and variable. So ultimately, you know, as the academic team kind of crystallizes that, they have those discussions, and they decide what's in, what's out, what's right. Then we'll factor those variables in there. The other piece is, you know, as far as professional development, right? So those discussions are still going in play. You know, as far as how do we become strategic, as far as what services are going to be provided, not only just to the leaders, but also to the teachers and other staff involved. You kind of heard earlier today, we were talking about relay, right? We're kind of going through the process, and you know the impact that it has on our leader to be able to be more effective and more accountable and more transparent. So you know, at the end of the day, you have to, in some way or fashion, be able to quantify that. And we'll be getting back to your question in reference to some of those items. So the last slide that you have is actually gives you an idea, a preliminary idea, what the budget's looking like for 2019. Actually, the first thing let me point out in there, you actually have a preliminary budget of what 2018-19 is, which, as you may recall, we kind of started or began the year a bit on the short end. There was an adjustment that was presented at the end of the first interim. There was another adjustment at the end of the second interim. But right now, as you know, and we're still tweaking with this, but that kind of gives you an idea how we're looking to kind of end for fiscal year 18-19. But it also kind of gives you an idea on those fixed variables that I just discussed, plus some of the things that are still in play as far as how that budget may be as we are moving forward. How's it looking for 19-20, and then of course over a 3-year trajectory. So that's my presentation. Just kind of an update on our upcoming, upcoming 19-20 budget. Sure.
So we're looking at an increase in state revenue for 2021?
Yes, so you're going from roughly about 21 to about 20. Remember, you have more kids, so you're going about 135 students.
Yeah, it would be nice to include in this table the stats, like footnote below, the enrollment, ADA, and
oh yes,
FTEs too, because expenses are growing, and also are we increasing teachers? I guess.
Yes. So this is just kind of like a snapshot. So here's what's going to be happening in May. In addition to the discussion on LTAPs, in addition to PD, I'm going to be reaching out to all the leaders and kind of going through their FE demands, their staffing needs. We'll start, that will be happening in the next 2-3 weeks. We start crystallizing, putting those in there. And ultimately, you may recall, you get that 5-year trajectory where it kind of details out, what's, staffing, teachers, non-teachers, student count, and a very detailed of all our expenditures within that budget. This is more of a macro one-page. But yes, we'll include that in.
This is assuming no expansion, no new school, and no second floor in Richmond, right?
No, it does. Actually, well, we'll definitely see the increase in students, right? Well, I think next month is when we'll be discussing about the tenant improvement, the project upstairs. So no, I believe we have not factored in. Did we factor? I'm trying to remember now.
Well, the capital expense is not in net income. It's not in the P&L there, but the upstairs rent is definitely captured there.
Good, yeah, good point. So we'll definitely be making some changes depending upon
the final decision that you guys.
But we are going to be able to add some students in Richmond. When David asked earlier, I was thinking just Richmond. It's 60 kids in Richmond, but across all of AMP, so it's about 130, 140, whatever number that was.
Yeah, correct.
So with our students, sorry.
It's tough, the amount. So it's kind of material.
Excuse me?
Oh, yeah. David asked me off the cuff many agenda items ago, because as we were growing. You know, we're growing over 100 students next year, which is, it is because John Henry's also adding more kids as well. But once we get the upstairs and that gets fully built out, then we're going to be able to grow even more.
Correct.
Because we're going to have the upstairs at that point.
Any other questions? And like I said, it's just a preliminary. We'll go through another run next month, and ultimately we'll have a full detailed budget for review and approval, not just on the organization at large, but every particular site. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes,
Two left. But I promise I'll be fast. I will be fast. You have to announce it, Ms. Wilson.
All right, the next item is 6.7, is the ad hoc committee update.
So, as you may recall, in December of last year, 2018, an ad hoc committee was put together to look into some questions regarding our special education department. I'm just going to give a really quick background of how we got to where we got to in December and what we've looked at since then. So before, at this very time, last year, you guys started looking at preliminary budgets, and at that time, staffing models have become set right around this time as we're looking at preliminary budgets and enrollment targets. By the time we got to September of last year, we realized that our sped enrollment wasn't quite as high as we projected to the budget. So we had more staff than necessary, right? Also in August of that same year, with new CAO, we started talking about restructuring. We had regional superintendent in Richmond, regional superintendent in Oakland, and we wanted them to have more input in what our kind of pre-sped looked like, our MTSS program. So we were going to put all of our ed specialists and paraprofessionals and counselors embedded at the sites rather than coming from a central home office sped department. So those conversations started in August. In October, after the September meeting where we realized the budget was approaching 50% over, we decided to make that shift, which we thought we could do in a more lean fashion. And so that shift happened in October. In order to try to right-size the department and get the number back closer down to what the budget allowed for. So in December, committee, Edgar, myself, former chair Corelli, Mr. Lopez, we spoke, and there were 5 main questions that came up that we wanted to make sure that we could answer after that December phone call that we had made a good decision. One was whether the current staffing models or the staffing model after the changes occurred and staffing ratios were appropriate and effective both financially and in delivery of services. 2, whether having ed specialists, paraprofessionals, and counselors report to site directors is or can be an effective model rather than reporting directly to a director of special education. 3, whether continuing to have an independent sped department under the auspices of EDCO or El Dorado County Office of Special Education is in the best interest of the organization, or if there are other options that we should look into. And that is 4 and 5. Should we decide to leave the SELPA, what would be our options? And should we want to leave the SELPA, what would the timing be, and costs and things like that? Okay. In order to kind of gather answers, we consulted closely with our current SELPA, other mental health program experts, including Lincoln's Families, which is focused on mental health programs, Seneca Mental Health Agency, which is a service from a contractor to run even your entire special education department if you wanted to, Senior Vice President and the Chair of the California Advisory Commission of Special Education, works with the CCSA, Gina Plate. And in those conversations, we learned, one, that the staffing at the beginning of the year was truly outsized. This was very clear when we talked to ourselves, but they said that is very, very heavy. In the notes that I uploaded to the folder, you'll see that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions highlighted that didn't interface directly with students. So these were kind of a tier of management position, compliance positions. And they said even, had you had the numbers that you projected way back at enrollment time, or in the spring of this year, it still would have been far too much management. As you can see now, it's broken down by site. We have 1 head specialist, 1 counselor, 1 para. In some cases we have more. BJE has more paras. They have some one-to-one needs that are written in the IEP, and we address those. But in general, it's kind of an head specialist, a counselor, and then paras as needed. We'll maybe have to hire some more head specialists as the caseloads get higher, but this is kind of the general model. Currently, we have 3 people rather than 8 on staff who don't directly interface with the students. One is the director of SPED, the special education coordinator. Actually, I should say 3.5. We have a full-time and a half-time psychologist, and they're responsible for assessing the students. So they also do, they do work with students, but they're not the one delivering the services. They're assessing the seeking services. We also learned that the model that we did shift to is common. It's used by many organizations. Can be effective. It's effective as the people that are running it. So one of the things that we want to focus on now is making sure that our training is excellent, that our SPED coordinator and our site directors are well trained, that we're accessing all the resources that the CELTA does offer us. And considering issues 3, 4, and 5, which are whether to continue on in the CELPA, and if, what would it be like to leave, and what would our other options be. We learned that, it's really up to us. Assuming that all our staffing needs are met, there's no reason that we can't continue to run a successful special education department. Although, just my personal opinion, that's quite the caveat, because staffing is very difficult for that department. The teacher shortage being what it is. For general education, it's tenfold special education. And we've had to continue to rely on contractors for certain things this year. We have to contract for some psychological assessments, occupational therapy, some of the lower incidents, things that turn up on IEPs like adaptive physical education. We still continue to contract for that. And those are actually not as hard to find. We can be pretty nimble finding a vision specialist or an adaptive PE coach. But it's the more meat and potatoes, like your resource teacher, that can be very hard to staff. They're in very high demand. But assuming we meet all our staffing needs, we feel like we do have the capacity to run an effective program. If we decided to leave EDCO and maybe find another option, another CELPA, the earliest we could do so would be June of 2020. So next year we'll have to continue on with that. Other options available would include joining CELPAs of our authorizing districts. We could partner with a company like Seneca. I actually spoke with a company today called Futures that helps with your staffing needs. They could come in and run your whole program, or you could organize some kind of hybrid with them. Say, we don't really feel strong doing the program, so you can run that part of our program, and we'll continue to do the instructional piece with our resource specialists and education specialists. So there are other options out there if we decided we wanted to go that route. Some of the changes that we've made to avoid some of the missteps that we made in 2018-19 are all staff change forms are now approved by the CEO. There's not a single change that goes through that he doesn't sign. All contracts that are signed with outside agencies for services are brought to me for signature. Enrollment projections and pending student assessments and whatever the departmental needs are discussed weekly. I meet weekly with our SPED coordinator to discuss among other things, projections for next year. So we have a much tighter pulse on the number of upcoming assessments, how many students we expect at each site to be having an IEP. So what our staffing needs will be is much earlier rather than later, so we're not scrambling to find staff. We have a weekly update. And we're trying to increase training for site leaders and SPED staff regularly, partnering with ourselves. A lot of the trainings for next year are kicking off in May, so training season is right around the corner. And And again, the biggest challenge we face now is staff, finding qualified staff. So that's something that we track really closely. If there's anything that would kind of be the Achilles heel of the program, it's just the beginning. Because of course, if you don't have somebody there to teach you behind that minutes, it becomes a compliance issue. So it's a very dangerous position to be in. So that's all. Any questions about that? Right now we're doing well.
So right now, how much will be the annual, what they call the annual encroachment?
I don't know that. Will, are you as well here?
Yeah.
The annual encroachment?
Yeah, the revenue is about 1.4. The extension will be about, we're not in the 20% in time, basically, which is more in line with the average of other CMOs through our cell phone. I think it's like 1.7 million or something. But it's because it was 50% over when they, like they were mentioning, now it's close between 20 to 32%, which is more in the range of averages.
And then that's one piece of evidence. And our staff was quite confident that we're at the right size for our enrollment. So that was encouraging.
I have one question as we look forward to the August contact meeting. Who's working on the agenda for that meeting and what these things be included?
Yes, we'll have a representative from ourselves will come out. Our speech and language pathologist is attending a training about bilingual, training for bilingual speech and language pathologist. She's bringing back some EL strategies to prepare to share at the summit as well. So we're going to tie in this some EL piece at the same training. So our site directors, along with Ms. Via, are working on the agenda. And we are planning on having representation from the South come speak to us as well.
All right, let's move on to 6.8, the CEO update.
This will be real brief. Mr. Lopez wanted to talk about college acceptances, but we've mentioned that already tonight, so he's very proud of the early admissions and excited to see what comes through next month as well. The final Achievement First Charter School Accelerator session is going to be held in Milwaukee, May 13th, 17th. The program so far has been focused on establishing strong instructional practices. We've talked about this at past meetings, data reviews, instructional coaching, superintendent practices, and other leadership practices. There was a charter school family rally on Wednesday, March 13th. Our students, families, and staff attended the Stand for All Students rally in Sacramento. Over 8,000 charter school families gathered on the Capitol steps and voiced their support for quality focused school choice. There was Bay Area focused training co-led by Mr. Lopez for families that discussed voter registration and issue building. We have a new organizer working in Richmond. David Gutierrez here. And we've been just trying to build right capacity to get our families ready for the coming times ahead. We're currently looking for a challenge director to oversee our human resources department with the departure of our former director. We started or continuing our recruitment for an associate regional superintendent. There are some high-caliber candidates coming through, but we've also seen a lot of applications that didn't do one call them. So it's been a tough position to fill. The teacher shortage is something that you wanted to highlight. Once again, we have been going to recruitment fairs, and there's more recruiters there than recruitees. Our career path process is underway. The applications have been submitted, and the review dates have been set. And so the first week of May, our applicants will know whether or not they're advancing along the career path. And the team of readers has been set as well. So we'll have some good news in the May meeting to announce our new career path that is supposed to advance along the career path. And both OCHS and John Henry graduations are going to be held at the Scottish Rite Temple in Oakland. OCHS on the 7th of June, John Henry on the 8th of June. Love to have you all there, of course. And the speakers themed awards recipients are still being sorted out at this time, but we'll have announcements on that as well. That's the good CEO.
Be sure to get a reminder, a couple of weeks.
Well, you'll get a proper invitation. No doubt.
I'm more concerned about the reminder, so that I get it on the calendar.
Yeah, that's it. I know, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes our business for the evening.